Hey guys, and today we'll be studying chemistry and just the basics of it. And well, yeah, let's get into it. Hey guys, and today we'll be learning about chemistry. Chemistry is just the study of, matter, like where matter is concerned, and like chemical reactions where like two things react and that creates a new substance. And that's basically what chemistry is about. And um, I'm fairly certain that is the question that would have popped into your mind when you start studying chemistry, like what is it? And yeah, I just explained it to you. So two really important things in chemistry are elements elements and atoms. An element is something like gold. So let me list that. So we have gold. So elements are, so one of them is gold, and then you might have carbon, and your hair, for a fun fact, is made out of carbon, and you have hydrogen, and sorry, and these are all elements. And a few scientists found out that these were elements, and they created the periodic table of elements. It's super easy to find a copy of. Just go onto Google, so type in the periodic table of elements, and you'll find a bunch of images. Um, you'll see that gold, carbon, and hydrogen are listed on there, but they are abbreviated. Um, I have a whole video on the periodic table coming soon, so yeah. And now let's get to the second word, atoms. And now let's take a list of what are not elements. So things that are not elements, maybe like water. Water. You might wonder, why isn't water an element? Because this is water is made when two molecules react to each other. So like you might have heard that water is H2O. That H stands for hydrogen. That H is hydrogen, and H2O, so that O is oxygen. And water is created when hydrogen and oxygen react. It's a chemical reaction. And that's why water is not an element, it's a combination or a reaction of elements. And those are things that are not elements. There's like 100, I think there is 128 elements. They're all on the periodic table. I'll leave I think I'll leave a link in the description to a photo. Uh, so now let's get to the atoms. So the atom is just the smallest unit, so the smallest chunk of something that can still have the properties of that something. So if I had some gold, I have a chunk of gold here, and I keep cutting that up into smaller, smaller, smaller and smaller chunks, and you keep doing that until you get to an atom. And I told you the atom is just the smallest chunk of anything that still has the properties of that anything. So if I cut gold down into the smallest, into really small pieces, and finally I will get to a piece of gold that you can't cut it into pieces anymore and expect it to still have the properties of gold. So let's say this is my smallest chunk of gold, and then I cut it, and now it's not gold anymore. It doesn't have the properties of gold anymore. And this right here, this is called the atom. Okay, so I hope you understood that, and that is what the atom is. And I can show you an example of what an atom will look like in different cases. But first I have to introduce you to some keywords. The proton, neutron, and electron. The proton, neutron, and electron. These are what an atom is made of: protons, neutrons, and electrons. On the periodic table, you will find that there is a number above the abbreviation of the element, and that number is called the atomic number, which states how many protons there are in an element. And if it is a neutral atom, it will have the same number of electrons as protons, so they are equal if it is a neutral atom. And a neutral atom is just an atom with no electric charge. And you might be wondering, how could an atom have an electric charge? And I'll tell you that. So a proton has a positive charge, and an electron has a negative charge. So you might know this already, but positive and negative charges, they both cancel out. And if you have the same number of electrons and protons, those charges cancel out, so it is a neutral atom, or it has a neutral electric charge. And you might be wondering, do neutrons have a charge? And the answer to that is no, they are neutral. And you might get that from the name, which is neutron, neutral. They sound pretty similar. And now I can draw you a rough diagram of what an atom would look like. I'll just do that after I erase this. Okay, so I'm done erasing all that. Oh, never mind. I just have to erase this arrow right here. Okay, and now I'm done erasing all that. And now I can draw you a carbon atom. So we have an element. We have all the elements on the periodic table, right? I told you that carbon was one of them. And let's draw a atom of carbon. So, and if you look on the periodic table, carbon will have 6 protons. So we can just draw these protons in red. And it also will have the most common version of carbon, and the word that chemists use is isotopes. So there are various isotopes of different elements, and the most common isotope of carbon will have 6 neutrons as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of each. And if it is a neutral atom, I'm just going to draw 6 electrons out here. And as you can see by the diagram I'm drawing, electrons are pretty small compared to neutrons and protons. And you might say, do these electrons stay fixed around these protons and neutrons? These protons and neutrons, they're essentially the center of the atom, and that is called the nucleus. The nucleus is where all the protons and neutrons are situated. Yeah, so these electrons, they don't stay in a fixed position. They kind of like buzz around the nucleus. We could say orbiting around the nucleus, but that's not quite right. It really just depends on how you want. If you're a beginner or you're getting more deeper into chemistry and you want to get a bigger understanding, if you're a beginner, I suggest you go, these electrons are orbiting around the nucleus. But as you get further into chemistry, I suggest you start using buzzing or flitting around the nucleus. And now, how do we write this down? So we won't write carbon, 6 neutrons, 6 protons, and 6 electrons. That wouldn't be very efficient. So people developed a way, and you just write the initial that's stated on the periodic table. And for carbon, it is C. Some of them are a little unusual, like gold is AU. So, and then at the top right here, at the top over here, is supposed to write the number of protons and neutrons that are in the nucleus, the number of them. So in this case, we have 6 neutrons and 6 protons, and we have to add them together, and with that we get 12. So we will write 12 up there, and if you want, you can also write the atomic number, which is just 6. And if you don't remember, the atomic number is just the number of protons in an atom. And this is how you write it. And you might be wondering, how do I say this? What do I call it? So this is carbon 12. This is just one isotope of carbon. And another isotope will have 7 neutrons, and that will be carbon 13. But it is it's not very common to see. And yeah, you would just say carbon 12. Like I said, you don't need to draw the 6 down here, so that's why you don't say carbon 12 6. You just say carbon 12. And also another reason is you can easily find the number of protons on the periodic table. So yeah, we've learned that. And another thing to tell you, electrons are really important in chemistry. Like if we know like how the electrons are configured in an atom, where they are, and we might get to know, okay, how will this bond with another atom of the same element? How are these electrons configured? If we learn all that, we can definitely know we can start to predict how these atoms will bond or repel or have chemical reactions. And like hydrogen and oxygen, we already know this makes water. And electrons are really important. I will get to give you more of an understanding later, but for now that is fine. And yeah, and a few more things about how an electron is important. It can so the number of protons, it really defines an element. So if I have 6 protons, we already know this will be carbon right here. But if I have 7 electrons, then it becomes, I think it's nitrogen. If you look at the periodic table, I'm pretty sure it's nitrogen. Tell me in the comments if I am wrong. And yeah, if it wouldn't be carbon anymore, it would be nitrogen. These neutrons can also change. As I told you, carbon 13 has 7 neutrons, but carbon 12 only has 6. So neutrons can also change. But electrons, they are interesting. They can be taken away by other atoms that want more electrons. They can be that atom can take electrons or give electrons, and they can also bond. They can share electrons as well. So if I have a gold atom right here, I'm not going to draw all of it. Gold stands for AU stands for gold, and this AU says, okay, I want this electron, and then it just takes it. This electron will just come back here, and then okay, AU will have another electron, and then carbon will only have 5. And now when that happens, or if carbon just loses an electron, this atom right here is going to become is going to become a positively charged atom, because protons have a positive charge, electrons have a negative charge, and now there's more protons than electrons, so that means there is a positive charge, because 5 protons and 5 electrons, they cancel out, and then only one proton charge is left. And yeah, so now it is a positively charged atom. And these electrons, when one of them is lost, and the protons give a more positive charge, and that atom has a positive charge overall, we write it over here as plus. You can write plus 1 plus if you want, but we just write a small 1 plus, or plus because it's 1. If 2 electrons were lost, we'd write 2 plus, and so on. If you lost 1, if that atom gained an electron, we would have a negative overall charge, because there are now more electrons than protons, more negative than positive. So we would just write -1, or just minus. And then if 2 electrons were given to that atom, we would write 2 minus, because there is there's an not unbalanced, but there is a more negative charge than positive charge. And also, you would call this, after this atom has been an electron has been taken away from this carbon atom, this is now a cation. And a cation, you guessed it, is a atom with less electrons than protons. And similarly, an anion is an atom with more electrons than protons. So let me just write that down. Cation is a positively charged atom. And if you don't want to be that specific, if you don't want to say, okay, this is a cation, you can just say this is an ion, because if an atom has any charge at all, it is considered an ion, and depending on what kind of charge it has, it'll be either a cation or a anion. So a cation is a positively charged atom. Proper definition is ion. And an anion is just the opposite. It's a negatively charged ion. So that's it for today's beginner chemistry thing. So hey guys, hope you liked the video. We studied chemistry today, and stay tuned for a video on the periodic table. I will do this in the future, and it will be posted in a few days, maybe tomorrow or the day after. And I used to explain everything to record this video as always, and peace.